Princess Catherine leads the young royals in a radiant trooping the color appearance. Flags fluttered in the breeze, and the distant sounds of preparation, the clip-clop of horses' hooves and the occasional trumpet, reached the royal residence, signaling the start of a very special day. Inside, Princess Catherine moved quietly through the rooms of her home, her steps calm and measured, yet her mind buzzed with the familiar mixture of excitement and responsibility that always accompanied public occasions. Her children, wide-eyed and full of youthful energy, had already begun to stir. The palace halls echoed with their laughter, their small voices calling out to one another as they prepared for what would be their first major ceremonial appearance. Catherine watched them for a moment, a soft smile touching her lips. There was something magical about seeing them in these early hours, so innocent, yet slowly learning the ways of the world that they were destined to step into. She knew that days like today would stay with them forever, shaping not only their memories but the way they understood their role in the life of the nation. The preparation began with quiet routines, which Catherine orchestrated like a conductor leading a symphony. The children were dressed carefully, each article of clothing chosen with both tradition and comfort in mind. She helped her eldest adjust a neatly tied cravat, fussed over the hem of a skirt, and checked the tiny buttons on their jackets, ensuring that each detail was just right. While the attire was formal, she found ways to add subtle touches that reflected her children's personalities. A small ribbon in a favorite color, a favorite scarf tucked neatly into a pocket, so they could feel themselves even within the strict codes of ceremony. Despite the grandeur of the day, Catherine's approach was gentle. She spoke in calm, steady tones, offering reassurance whenever nerves threatened to surface. "It's okay to feel a little nervous," she said softly to her youngest, who had begun to fidget with the cuffs of a jacket. "We're all here together. And I'll be with you the whole time." Her words carried warmth and confidence, and the child's anxiety seemed to melt under the comfort of their mother's presence. She knew that her own composure would set the tone for the children, teaching them that moments of pressure could be met with calm and grace. While they prepared, the household buzzed with activity. Staff moved quietly but efficiently, carrying trays of breakfast and cups of warm tea, checking schedules and confirming timing for transportation. The royal kitchen had prepared special dishes that would give the children energy without upsetting little stomachs: soft scrambled eggs, warm toast, fresh fruit, and delicate pastries, all arranged with care on polished silver trays. Catherine encouraged the children to eat, knowing that a good meal would provide both comfort and strength. Between bites, she shared small stories, recalling her own experiences of ceremonies past, always careful to frame them in ways that would both entertain and educate. Even as the preparations continued, Catherine allowed moments of light-hearted fun. She suggested little games to distract from the nerves, such as guessing which horse would march first or imagining stories about the guards' elaborate uniforms. Laughter filled the rooms, blending with the rustle of fabric and the occasional hum of music coming from another part of the palace. These small moments of joy reminded the children that, despite the importance of the event, there was room for playfulness and delight. Catherine believed that happiness and duty could coexist, and she wanted her children to carry that understanding with them as they grew into their public roles. Time moved quickly, and soon it was almost time to leave for the parade grounds. Catherine gathered the children, holding hands with the youngest and linking arms with the others. She offered gentle words of encouragement, whispering reminders about how to stand, wave, and smile. She told them, "Remember, people are excited to see you, and they are happy when you're happy too. Just be yourselves." Her instructions were simple, yet they carried the weight of experience and understanding. She wanted her children to feel confidence in the midst of tradition, to know that ceremony could be both meaningful and approachable. As they descended the grand staircase, The morning light poured through the windows, casting long, soft beams across the polished floors. Catherine paused for a moment at the bottom, letting her children take in the sight before them. It was not just a hall or a staircase. It was a passage into a larger world, a bridge between the familiar safety of home and the grandeur of public life. The young royals looked up at her, their faces full of curiosity and wonder, and she gave them a reassuring nod. It was a silent promise that they would face this new experience together. Outside, the streets were beginning to fill with crowds. People had arrived hours early, hoping to catch a glimpse of the young royals. Their faces were filled with anticipation, and small children waved homemade flags, eyes wide with excitement. Catherine guided her children carefully, helping them to observe the crowds with polite curiosity rather than overwhelm. She explained quietly, "See how everyone is here to celebrate with us. They're excited to be part of this day, just as we are. Let's make them feel welcome with our smiles." The carriage awaited to take them to Horse Guards Parade, gleaming under the morning sun. Catherine helped the children settle inside, adjusting cloaks and checking that hats were secure. She took a moment to look at them, so small, so full of potential, and felt a deep sense of pride. Her heart swelled with love and a little nostalgia, remembering the moments when they were even smaller, learning to walk and talk, completely unaware of the roles they would one day inherit. Yet in that moment, she realized that these early experiences, filled with wonder and care, were shaping their understanding of responsibility, kindness, and presence. The journey to the parade was filled with gentle conversation. Catherine pointed out landmarks and shared stories about the history of each location, weaving a tapestry of education and engagement that made the ride feel like an adventure rather than a formality. The children listened intently, their eyes darting from one scene to another, absorbing details with the kind of curiosity only young minds possess. When a horse trotted past on the street, they gasped in delight, and Catherine smiled, delighted by their enthusiasm. She understood that today was not just a ceremonial duty. It was a chance to inspire imagination, pride, and a sense of connection to the traditions that had defined generations. By the time they arrived at the parade grounds, the morning had fully awakened the city. The crowds had grown denser, the flags fluttered more boldly, and the air was filled with the hum of excitement. Catherine led her children from the carriage, holding their hands firmly, helping them navigate the steps and the uneven surfaces of the parade route. Her presence was a steady anchor, a reminder that no matter the grandeur or the expectations, family and care could make any occasion manageable and joyful. Even before the ceremony began, Catherine's children had already absorbed lessons that would stay with them for years. They had learned about preparation, patience, and poise. They had experienced the importance of kindness, the value of humor amidst formality, and the power of a guiding presence to transform nervousness into confidence. Catherine knew that the day would pass quickly, but the memories and the lessons would linger, forming the foundation of their understanding of duty, leadership, and family. As the final moments before the parade ticked by, Catherine took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of pride, excitement, and a hint of nostalgia. She looked at her children one last time before stepping onto the public stage with them, seeing in their eyes the same curiosity and wonder she had felt at their age. It was a moment suspended in time, where the private warmth of home met the public eye of the world. And in that moment, Catherine knew that she was giving them something far more valuable than just guidance through a ceremony. She was showing them how to carry themselves with grace, courage, and joy, no matter where life might lead. The carriage rolled smoothly along the streets of London, its polished surface gleaming in the morning sun. Princess Catherine sat with her children, gently guiding them through the final moments of anticipation before stepping into the public eye. From inside the carriage, the children could see the crowds gathering along the streets, their faces bright with excitement and curiosity. Flags waved energetically, and the murmur of voices rose in anticipation. Catherine felt a warm sense of pride as she looked at her children, seeing their wide eyes and excited expressions. Today was not just any day. It was a moment that would be remembered in their lives forever. As the carriage approached Horse Guards Parade, the sense of occasion deepened. The roads were lined with people of all ages, some holding small flags, others leaning forward eagerly to get a better view. The atmosphere was electric yet orderly, filled with the polite energy of a city accustomed to royal celebrations. Catherine knew the importance of guiding her children calmly through this experience. She encouraged them to observe, to notice how people were celebrating, and to understand that these cheers and waves were gestures of warmth and respect. The children, still small in stature but growing into their roles, pressed closer to Catherine, their hands grasping hers for reassurance. She bent down occasionally, whispering small pieces of advice and encouragement. "Wave gently," she said. "Smile, but don't feel you have to be perfect. People will be happy to see you being yourselves." Her words were simple, yet they carried a depth of understanding, teaching the children that grace and authenticity were more powerful than rigid formality. As the carriage drew to a slow halt, the children looked out the windows, taking in the parade grounds in all their grandeur. Soldiers in bright uniforms, horses with polished harnesses, and the ceremonial banners all combined to create a scene that was at once historic and dazzling. Catherine helped the children steady themselves, reminding them to step carefully as they exited the carriage. The moment required poise, but she infused it with warmth, holding their hands and guiding their steps with a mother's care. When they stepped onto the parade grounds, the reaction from the crowd was immediate. Cheers erupted, and cameras clicked in rapid succession, capturing every moment. Catherine felt a swell of emotion as she observed her children taking in the scene with awe and curiosity. They waved shyly at first, their little hands moving uncertainly in the direction of the crowd, but Catherine encouraged them with gentle nods and smiles. She understood that this was a moment of first impressions for them, a chance to experience the joy of public engagement while learning the importance of composure. The young royals moved forward with Catherine's guidance, taking careful steps across the polished grounds. The children were fascinated by the soldiers and their precise movements, their attention drawn to the rhythmic clatter of boots and the gleam of metal on ceremonial uniforms. Catherine took a moment to explain the significance of what they were witnessing. "These soldiers are here to protect and honor our country," she whispered. "They practice every day to make sure everything is perfect, and today we get to celebrate them." The children listened attentively, their curiosity growing as they began to understand that this was more than a spectacle. It was a tradition rooted in respect and duty. As the family moved closer to the center of the parade grounds, Catherine maintained a balance between instruction and freedom. She allowed the children small moments to interact naturally with the environment, encouraging them to point out details that caught their interest. "Look at the horses," she said, bending down so they could see the polished harnesses and feathered plumes. "Notice how carefully they are trained. Just like us, they have learned to do something very special." Her words connected the ceremonial to the personal, showing the children that attention to detail and care in practice were qualities that could be applied to their own lives. The sounds of the ceremony began to grow louder, blending with the rhythm of drums and the calls of commanding officers. Catherine guided the children to stand still, gently reminding them to hold themselves tall. "We respect the ceremony by being present and attentive," she explained. "It is important to honor the work and dedication of everyone here." The children mimicked her posture, trying their best to appear composed while still marveling at the surrounding spectacle. Catherine's presence provided a reassuring anchor, allowing them to navigate the formal environment without fear or confusion. Throughout the early moments of the parade, Catherine also took care to ensure that the children felt included and confident. She made small observations and offered quiet praise for their efforts. "You're doing wonderfully," she said to her eldest, who was beginning to relax and wave more naturally to the crowd. "See how happy the people are when you smile. That's because they can feel your happiness." The child's eyes sparkled with pride, understanding for the first time how simple gestures of warmth and engagement could make a difference in the way people experience the ceremony. As the family moved to a position closer to the balcony where they would later appear, Catherine encouraged them to take in the grandeur of the surroundings fully. She pointed out the historic buildings, the ceremonial flags, and the disciplined movements of the troops. "Everything you see here has a story," she said. "The traditions, the uniforms, even the way the horses march, it all connects to our country's history." The children's faces lit up with curiosity, and they asked questions about the soldiers, the music, and the meaning behind each element of the ceremony. Catherine answered patiently, weaving explanations that were simple yet informative, fostering a sense of understanding and respect. At this moment, Catherine also reflected quietly on her own experiences with public appearances. She remembered the nerves she had felt as a young royal, and she was determined to make this day easier and more enjoyable for her children. Her approach was not only practical but emotional, ensuring that they felt supported and confident. By balancing guidance with encouragement, she created an environment where the children could thrive, learning important lessons about presence, poise, and engagement, while still feeling the natural joy of being seen and celebrated. The crowd's excitement grew as the family moved into position. Catherine's children, now beginning to feel more confident, waved and smiled, enjoying the warmth of the public's attention. Catherine herself maintained a calm, graceful demeanor, demonstrating the kind of composure that comes from experience. Her children mirrored her example, understanding through observation as much as instruction how to carry themselves in a moment of public significance. The blend of parental guidance, personal courage, and joyful curiosity created a scene that was both heartwarming and inspiring. As the formal ceremony began, Catherine continued to whisper small reminders and encouragements to her children. "Watch the soldiers," she said, "and notice how carefully they move. Pay attention, but remember, it's okay to enjoy this too." The children nodded, their faces full of wonder, taking in the disciplined formations, the gleaming banners, and the coordinated movements that seemed almost magical in their precision. Catherine's ability to teach, comfort, and inspire simultaneously allowed them to experience the ceremony fully, without being overwhelmed by its grandeur. By the time they reached the center of the parade grounds, Catherine's children were no longer nervous. They were engaged, curious, and even playful in small, appropriate ways. Their energy had shifted from anxious anticipation to thoughtful participation, guided by their mother's careful attention. Catherine felt a sense of quiet pride, seeing her children learn and grow in real time, embracing a moment that would remain with them for years to come. Throughout the morning, Catherine's attention to detail and warmth ensured that the children remained calm and happy. She encouraged them to notice the small things, the shimmer of a soldier's buttons, the coordination of the bands, the rhythmic movement of the horses. In doing so, she taught them that grandeur and ceremony could be appreciated not only for their spectacle, but for the effort, discipline, and care behind them. This lesson, she knew, was far more valuable than any fleeting moment of public admiration. As the carriage drove them closer to the balcony for the public appearance, Catherine took a deep breath, feeling a mix of relief and pride. The morning had been a delicate balance of preparation, guidance, and engagement, and her children had risen to the occasion beautifully. They were not just witnessing history, they were participating in it, learning the importance of poise, presence, and empathy. Catherine knew that these lessons would shape their understanding of duty and leadership for the rest of their lives. Finally, as they arrived at the balcony, the cheers of the crowd reached a crescendo. Catherine helped the children step out, holding their hands and guiding them gently forward. She whispered one last piece of advice. Smile, wave, and remember, this is a celebration. Enjoy it. The children looked out at the crowd with wonder, their faces lighting up with excitement and pride. Catherine's heart swelled with joy, knowing that she had not only helped them navigate a formal ceremony, but had also created memories that would last a lifetime. In that moment, the blend of tradition, family, and public celebration came together perfectly. Catherine's careful guidance, the children's curiosity, and the crowd's warmth created an atmosphere of joy, respect, and admiration. The morning had begun with nerves and anticipation, but it had transformed into a celebration of presence, preparation, and the quiet power of familial support. Catherine knew that this was only the beginning of a lifetime of experiences like this, and she felt grateful to share such a moment with her children, teaching them the value of grace, patience, and wonder along the way. The Trooping the Color ceremony had begun in full, and the air was alive with the sounds of marching soldiers, the clatter of polished boots, and the brilliant notes of brass bands. Princess Catherine stood tall, guiding her children as they watched the spectacle unfold. Each moment was filled with precision and tradition, and she gently explained what was happening so they could understand and appreciate the significance. Her voice was calm and warm, cutting through the background noise, making the ceremony feel accessible and meaningful to her young audience. The children's eyes widened as they observed the soldiers marching in perfect synchronization. Catherine leaned down and whispered, "See how carefully they move together. Every step is practiced, and they do it to honor the country and the people. Discipline and teamwork are very important." The children nodded, fascinated by the discipline and unity on display. They began to imitate small movements quietly, trying to match the rhythm of the soldiers, and Catherine smiled at their curiosity and eagerness to learn. As the ceremony progressed, the royal family moved to a prominent position to observe the changing of the colors. Catherine explained the history behind the event in simple, engaging words, telling the children how this ceremony had been performed for generations to celebrate the military and the monarchy. She spoke of bravery, service, and the pride people felt in their country. The children listened attentively, their minds absorbing not only the spectacle but the meaning behind it. Catherine felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that these moments were shaping their understanding of tradition and responsibility. The young royals were mesmerized by the colorful flags, the shining medals, and the majestic horses that carried the regimental banners. Catherine took their hands and pointed out small details, encouraging them to notice not just the grandeur, but also the effort behind it. "Look at the horses," she said softly. "They are trained very carefully, just like the soldiers. Everything here is about practice, respect, and doing your best." Her words connected the children to the ceremony, helping them understand that the beauty they saw was the result of dedication and care. When the parade reached a moment of quiet, with only the soft sound of drums and trumpets echoing in the background, Catherine encouraged her children to reflect. "Take a moment to see everything around you," she whispered. "Notice the details, and remember that this day is special not just because it is beautiful, but because it brings people together to celebrate something bigger than ourselves." The children looked around in wonder, their small hands clutching hers as they took in the scene. Beginning to understand the importance of presence, awareness, and appreciation. Throughout the ceremony, Catherine remained attentive to her children's comfort and understanding. She adjusted small details in their clothing, ensured they were standing correctly, and offered gentle reminders to wave or smile when appropriate. She understood that their first experiences with public ceremonies could be overwhelming, and her careful guidance helped them navigate the complexity with confidence. She also made sure to sprinkle moments of lightness, pointing out funny little things like the way a horse flicked its tail or the precise march of a drummer, eliciting giggles and quiet laughter. As the parade continued, Catherine used the opportunity to teach her children about respect and gratitude. She explained the roles of the different soldiers, the history of the uniforms, and the meaning of the music. "Every person here has practiced hard to make this day successful," she said. "Showing respect means paying attention, appreciating their effort, and being polite to everyone you meet." The children absorbed her words, trying their best to embody both curiosity and respect as they observed the ceremony. Catherine's blend of instruction and warmth allowed them to learn naturally, making the experience both educational and enjoyable. At one point, the children were drawn to the intricate movements of the cavalry, their horses prancing proudly across the parade ground. Catherine encouraged them to focus on the rhythm and coordination. "Notice how the horses and soldiers work together," she said. "They trust each other and perform as a team. We can learn a lot from that." The children nodded, fascinated by the combination of grace and discipline. They began asking questions about the horses, the uniforms, and the history of the regiments, and Catherine answered with patience and enthusiasm, making sure each answer was clear and meaningful for their young minds. The sounds of music and marching created a rhythm that seemed to guide the family through the morning. Catherine encouraged her children to join in small ways, clapping along softly to the drum beats, mimicking the movements of the soldiers with their hands, and waving at the people in the crowd. She balanced ceremony with playfulness, understanding that engagement was just as important as observation. The children laughed quietly at their own little imitations, and Catherine smiled, pleased that they were not only participating but also enjoying themselves. As the ceremony reached its peak, Catherine guided her children to focus on the symbolic aspects of the event. She explained how the colors represented the courage and history of the regiments, and how the parade itself honored service and dedication. "This is why traditions matter," she said. "They remind us of the values we want to carry forward: courage, respect, and pride in our work and our community." The children listened intently, absorbing the lessons behind the spectacle and beginning to see the depth of meaning behind the bright uniforms and synchronized movements. Despite the formality of the event, Catherine allowed for moments of personal connection. She held her children's hands, adjusted their postures, and whispered encouragements. "You're doing wonderfully," she said quietly. "Remember, it's okay to feel proud and happy. People are here to celebrate with us, and they enjoy seeing your smiles." Her words reminded the children that public appearances were not only about formality, but also about sharing joy and connection. They responded with shy but genuine smiles, feeling the warmth of their mother's guidance and the excitement of the crowd. During a brief pause in the parade, Catherine encouraged her children to reflect on what they had seen. "Think about how many people worked hard to make today happen," she said. "From the soldiers to the musicians to the organizers, everyone had a role. And now we get to be part of it too." The children looked around thoughtfully, beginning to understand that their presence had meaning, and that they too could contribute to the joy and dignity of the occasion. Catherine felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that these lessons of appreciation and responsibility would remain with them far longer than any memory of the pageantry itself. As the ceremony continued, Catherine also helped the children manage their energy and focus. She reminded them to stand tall, breathe calmly, and enjoy the experience without becoming overwhelmed. She encouraged small conversations, whispered observations, and quiet questions, creating a rhythm that balanced attention and engagement. The children followed her lead, learning to navigate the complexities of a public ceremony with composure and curiosity. Catherine's careful guidance turned a potentially stressful day into an opportunity for growth, understanding, and joy. The music swelled, and the soldiers performed their final coordinated movements. Catherine's children watched in awe as the banners were paraded proudly, the horses and soldiers moving as one. Catherine bent down to whisper, "Remember this moment. Notice the care, the teamwork, and the pride. This is what makes tradition special." The children nodded, absorbing the significance and marveling at the precision and beauty of the ceremony. For them, the parade had become more than an event. It was a living lesson in dedication, respect, and participation. As the final notes of the bands echoed across the parade ground, Catherine guided her children in a small but meaningful gesture of acknowledgement. They waved to the soldiers, nodded in appreciation, and offered polite smiles to the crowd. Catherine explained that these small acts of recognition were important, reinforcing the respect and gratitude that the ceremony was meant to honor. The children followed her example, learning that even small gestures could have powerful meaning when performed with sincerity and care. Finally, the parade began to conclude, and Catherine led her children toward a slightly elevated area where they could observe the final movements. She encouraged them to take one last look around, to notice the order, beauty, and effort that had gone into the ceremony. "See how everything comes together," she asked. "All the practice, all the care, it makes something beautiful. And we've had the chance to be part of it today." The children looked around in quiet amazement, understanding the harmony and effort behind the spectacle in a way they had not before. As they prepared to transition to the next part of the day, Catherine reflected quietly on how her children had handled their first major ceremonial appearance. She felt a deep sense of pride and gratitude, knowing that the lessons of poise, respect, and participation had begun to take root. Her careful balance of guidance, warmth, and education had allowed them to experience both the grandeur of tradition and the personal joy of being fully present in the moment. The morning ceremony had been more than just a formal event. It had been a journey of learning, connection, and discovery. Catherine's children had witnessed history in motion, understood the significance of tradition, and learned how to engage with dignity and curiosity. Catherine herself had demonstrated that leadership was not only about public performance, but also about nurturing growth, confidence, and awareness in those around you. As they stepped away from the central parade area, the children were still buzzing with excitement, asking questions and pointing out details they had noticed. Catherine smiled, pleased that their curiosity had been fully engaged and that they had found joy in the ceremony. She knew that the lessons of today would stay with them, shaping how they approached responsibility, tradition, and public life in the years to come. In that moment, the Trooping the Color had achieved its greatest purpose, not just to celebrate tradition, but to teach, inspire, and connect. Princess Catherine's guidance had ensured that her children experienced it fully, understanding both its spectacle and its meaning. And as they moved forward, ready for the next stage of the day, Catherine knew that the combination of family, learning, and public engagement had created a memory that would last a lifetime. The ceremony had reached its peak, and now it was time for Princess Catherine and her children to step onto the balcony, a moment that would mark the highlight of the Trooping the Color Day. The young royals, still full of energy from the parade, held tightly to Catherine's hands as they approached the grand doors that led to the famous vantage point. The air was filled with excitement, the hum of the crowd below mingling with the distant sound of music, creating a sense of anticipation that was almost tangible. Catherine, ever calm and encouraging, took a deep breath and smiled at her children, ready to guide them through this very public moment. As they emerged onto the balcony, the crowd erupted in cheers. Thousands of people had gathered, waving flags and craning their necks to catch a glimpse of the royal family. Cameras flashed repeatedly, capturing every wave, every smile, every small gesture. Catherine felt a surge of pride as she looked at her children, who were now standing beside her, eyes wide with awe and excitement. She held their hands briefly, giving them a reassuring squeeze, and whispered, "Remember, we are here to celebrate with everyone. Smile and enjoy the moment." Her words were simple, yet filled with warmth and guidance, helping them understand the significance of being in front of such a large, enthusiastic audience. The young royals waved shyly at first, unsure of how to respond to the overwhelming attention. Catherine encouraged them gently, nodding her head and smiling in a way that communicated both pride and reassurance. Slowly, they began to wave more confidently, their movements natural and filled with curiosity. The crowd responded with even louder cheers, creating a feedback of excitement and joy that seemed to energize the children further. Catherine noticed the way their eyes sparkled as they observed the sea of faces below, and she knew that this was a moment that would remain etched in their memories forever. While they stood on the balcony, Catherine took a moment to explain to her children why this public appearance was important. "People are happy to see us because we are part of their history and their celebrations," she said softly. "By being here, we share joy, respect, and kindness. Smiles and waves are a way to connect with them, and they will remember it for a long time." The children listened carefully, beginning to understand that their presence was not only ceremonial but also symbolic, representing warmth, connection, and shared celebration. As the minutes passed, Catherine encouraged small interactions to keep the children engaged and confident. She pointed out familiar faces in the crowd, commented on the colorful flags waving in the wind, and drew their attention to the precision of the military formations below. "See how organized everything is," she said. "Everyone is working together to make this day beautiful. We are part of it too, in our own way." The children nodded, observing the scene with fascination, their initial shyness slowly transforming into excitement and pride. Catherine also made sure to include moments of lightness, allowing the children to enjoy the experience in a personal way. She whispered small jokes, pointed out little humorous details like a horse flicking its tail or a soldier adjusting his uniform, and encouraged the children to laugh quietly. These moments of joy helped ease any lingering nerves, reminding them that even in formal and public settings, it was okay to experience happiness and playfulness. The combination of guidance, education, and gentle fun made the balcony appearance not just ceremonial, but also deeply memorable. The wind fluttered gently across the balcony, carrying the sounds of the cheering crowd below. Catherine used this opportunity to teach her children about the importance of presence and attention. "Notice the people who have come to see us," she said. "They've waited patiently, and they're excited to share this moment with us." By acknowledging them with a smile or a wave, we show respect and kindness. The children followed her lead, waving in unison and beaming at the crowd. Their gestures were small, but Catherine knew that these actions represented an early lesson in empathy and awareness, qualities that would serve them throughout their lives. As the family stood together, Catherine reminded the children to observe and appreciate the details around them. "Look at the decorations, the banners, the uniforms," she said. "Every part of this ceremony has meaning. It shows pride, tradition, and care." The children leaned forward slightly, eyes wide, taking in the intricate patterns on the banners, the bright colors of the flags, and the disciplined movements of the guards below. Catherine's explanations helped them see beyond the spectacle, understanding that every element was part of a story, a connection to history and tradition that went far deeper than appearances. The young royal's attention was soon drawn to the music, the rhythmic sound of drums and trumpets filling the air. Catherine encouraged them to listen closely, to feel the rhythm and energy of the ceremony. "Music tells a story too," she explained. "It celebrates bravery, teamwork, and dedication. When you pay attention to it, You understand more about the people and the history behind the celebration." The children nodded, swaying slightly to the music, their curiosity and engagement growing with each passing moment. Catherine felt proud that they were not only participating, but also learning to appreciate the layers of meaning behind the ceremony. Throughout the balcony appearance, Catherine remained attuned to the children's needs and emotions. She noticed when one child looked slightly overwhelmed and offered a reassuring squeeze of the hand. She guided them to shift their posture, adjust their position, and take a breath when needed. Catherine understood that public events could be tiring for children, and her careful attention ensured that they remained comfortable and confident throughout. Her presence allowed them to experience the grandeur and significance of the moment without fear or hesitation. The children's confidence continued to grow as they waved and smiled, responding naturally to the crowd's enthusiasm. Catherine encouraged them to notice the reactions of the people below, explaining that their joy and excitement were signs of appreciation and connection. "See how happy they are," she said. "They enjoy sharing this moment with us, and it's important to share our happiness with them too." The children nodded, their small faces lighting up with understanding and pride. Catherine's guidance had transformed a potentially intimidating experience into one of joy, learning, and engagement. As the balcony appearance continued, Catherine also emphasized the importance of teamwork and unity. She reminded the children that they were not alone, that their family was a team, and that by supporting one another, they could navigate any situation with confidence and grace. "When we stand together," she said softly, "we feel stronger and happier. People can see our connection, and it makes the moment even more special." The children grasped her hands more firmly, sensing the comfort and security of their mother's presence, and smiled confidently at the crowd below. Throughout the appearance, Catherine took the opportunity to reinforce the values of respect, kindness, and awareness. She pointed out small gestures from the crowd, like a child holding a carefully drawn flag or a family standing politely to wave. "Notice how they are participating," she said. "They are showing respect and excitement. We do the same by being polite, smiling, and engaging with them." The children followed her example, waving and smiling sincerely, learning that true presence involved both giving and receiving positive energy. As the final moments on the balcony approached, Catherine encouraged her children to take a mental snapshot of the scene, the colors, the sounds, the people, and the shared joy. "Remember how this feels," she said. "The excitement, the connection, and the pride. These are the things that stay with us, not just for today, but for years to come." The children nodded, their eyes absorbing the scene, their faces glowing with happiness and pride. Catherine knew that this lesson in mindfulness and appreciation was just as important as the ceremonial aspects of the day. Finally, as the balcony appearance concluded, Catherine guided her children to take a last wave to the crowd, ensuring that each child had a moment of personal connection with the people below. The cheers and applause were deafening, and the children beamed with joy, feeling the warmth and excitement of the shared celebration. Catherine whispered a final word of encouragement, reminding them that their presence had brought happiness and connection to thousands of people, and that they had done so with grace and confidence. As they stepped back from the balcony, the children were still buzzing with excitement, talking quietly amongst themselves about what they had seen and experienced. Catherine smiled, feeling a deep sense of pride and satisfaction. She had guided them through a highly public, emotionally charged moment with care, patience, and warmth, ensuring that they not only participated successfully, but also learned important lessons about presence, respect, and empathy. The balcony appearance had been more than a ceremonial duty. It had been an opportunity for learning, growth, and connection. Catherine's children had experienced firsthand the power of presence, the joy of shared celebration, and the importance of acting with kindness and awareness. Catherine herself had demonstrated the subtle art of leadership, showing that guiding and nurturing others could create confidence, happiness, and lasting memories. As they returned indoors, the children continued to discuss the event with excitement, pointing out favorite moments, favorite colors, and favorite people they had seen. Catherine listened patiently, reinforcing the lessons she had taught and encouraging their reflections. She knew that these conversations would help the children process the experience and carry forward the values they had learned. By the end of the morning, the family had shared a moment that was historic, joyful, and deeply educational. Catherine felt proud not only of her children's ability to engage with the public, but also of the way they had absorbed lessons of respect, awareness, and empathy. The balcony appearance had been a success, leaving the family united, confident, and full of memories that would last a lifetime. After the balcony appearance, Princess Catherine led her children back inside the palace, their small hands still intertwined with hers and their faces glowing from the excitement of the morning. The noise of the cheering crowd gradually faded, replaced by the soft sounds of the palace, footsteps on polished floors, the distant murmur of staff, and the quiet clinking of teacups. Catherine felt a sense of calm satisfaction settle over her, knowing that the day had been a success, not just as a public celebration, but as a profound experience for her children. The children, still buzzing with energy, chattered happily about everything they had seen. "The horses were amazing," one of them exclaimed, "and the flags, they were so bright," another added. Catherine listened with a gentle smile, encouraging them to share their thoughts and feelings. She wanted them to process their experiences fully, reflecting on the moments that had captured their attention and sparked their curiosity. In doing so, she was teaching them an important lesson: that reflection and understanding are as valuable as participation itself. As they moved into a quieter room, Catherine guided her children to sit and rest for a moment, offering them a small snack to replenish their energy. "You've all done wonderfully today," she said softly, brushing a strand of hair from one child's face. "It was a big day, and I'm very proud of how you handled it. But now, let's take a moment to breathe, relax, and think about everything we've experienced." Her calm presence allowed the children to feel safe and supported, reinforcing the idea that moments of high activity and attention must be balanced with rest and reflection. The children eagerly began recounting the details of the ceremony. They described the soldiers, the horses, the music, and the flags with enthusiasm, their eyes sparkling as they relived the day in words. Catherine listened patiently, occasionally asking questions to help them think deeper. "What did you notice about how the soldiers worked together?" she asked. "And how did the music make you feel?" The children paused thoughtfully, considering her questions, and began to understand that the day had been more than a series of exciting sights. It had been a lesson in teamwork, discipline, and shared celebration. Catherine gently guided the conversation toward the significance of tradition and public service. "The ceremony we participated in today has been happening for hundreds of years," she explained. "It reminds people of bravery, teamwork, and pride in what we do together. By taking part, we honor those values and show respect for everyone who has worked hard to make it happen." The children listened attentively, slowly beginning to grasp the deeper meaning behind the spectacle. Catherine's words framed the day not just as entertainment, but as a living connection to history and responsibility. She also encouraged the children to consider the feelings of the people who had come to see them. "All those people outside waited for hours just to catch a glimpse of us," she said. "They were excited to share this special day. When we wave, smile, and acknowledge them, we are showing gratitude. Gratitude is important because it makes the world a kinder and happier place." The children nodded, their expressions thoughtful, beginning to understand that small gestures could have a big impact, even in the midst of grand and formal events. After a few minutes of reflection, Catherine guided her children to consider what they had learned about themselves. "Today was new and exciting," she said. "You were brave, curious, and respectful. These qualities are very important, and I'm proud to see you using them." The children beamed at her praise, feeling a sense of accomplishment. Catherine understood that moments of recognition and encouragement were just as important as lessons in discipline and observation, helping her children build confidence in themselves and their abilities. As the day began to wind down, Catherine encouraged the children to capture the memories in another way, by imagining the stories behind the ceremony. "Think about the people who practiced for this day," she said. "What do you imagine their lives are like? How did they prepare for this moment?" The children's faces lit up with creativity, and they began sharing imaginative stories about the soldiers, the horses, and even the flags. Catherine smiled, delighted that she had sparked their curiosity and imagination, blending history and tradition with personal reflection and storytelling. Catherine also emphasized the importance of family support throughout the day. "We did this together," she reminded her children. "We held hands, encouraged each other, and helped one another when needed. That is what makes moments like this special. Family is always there to guide and support, and that makes everything better." The children nodded, understanding for the first time that their connection to one another was as meaningful as their participation in the ceremony itself. Catherine's words reinforced the idea that shared experiences, even formal ones, are strengthened by love, care, and cooperation. The family then moved to a quiet sitting area, where Catherine encouraged a moment of gratitude. "Let's think about all the people who made today possible," she said. "From the musicians to the guards to the staff preparing the palace, everyone worked hard. Gratitude helps us appreciate their effort and remember that no achievement happens alone." The children repeated simple words of thanks aloud, practicing mindfulness and reflection in a way that was accessible and meaningful. Catherine watched them closely, proud of their growing awareness and emotional intelligence. Catherine also invited the children to reflect on how they had felt during the public appearances. "Were there moments that made you nervous?" she asked gently. "And how did you handle them?" The children shared their feelings honestly, admitting small moments of uncertainty, but also expressing pride in how they had faced them. Catherine praised their honesty and courage, explaining that acknowledging emotions is a sign of strength, and that learning to manage feelings in public situations is an important life skill. The afternoon continued with gentle conversation, quiet laughter, and shared reflections. Catherine asked her children to think about what they enjoyed most and what they learned about the people around them. The children spoke about the cheering crowds, the precise soldiers, and the majesty of the ceremony, but also about the joy of sharing these experiences with each other. Catherine smiled, realizing that the true success of the day lay not in public admiration or spectacle, but in the growth, connection, and happiness it had fostered within her family. Catherine also encouraged the children to think about the lessons they could carry forward. "What you experienced today is just the beginning," she said. "You've learned about teamwork, respect, and gratitude. You've learned to be present, to pay attention, and to find joy in moments that are both big and small. These lessons will help you in school, with friends, and in life." The children listened carefully, beginning to understand that ceremonial events like this were more than tradition. They were opportunities to grow, reflect, and develop character. As the day drew toward evening, Catherine helped the children transition from the excitement of public appearances to quiet, personal reflection. She encouraged them to write or draw about the day, capturing the colors, sounds, and emotions they had experienced. "Keeping memories helps us remember what we've learned," she said. "It also allows us to share the joy and lessons with others." The children eagerly began sketching horses, flags, and soldiers, while Catherine quietly observed, proud of the way they were internalizing the lessons of the day in creative and personal ways. Even as the palace quieted down, Catherine continued to guide her children through reflection. She asked them to think about how they had helped each other throughout the day, how they had supported one another during nervous moments, and how they had shared joy together. The children spoke of holding hands, whispering encouragement, and laughing quietly at funny details. Catherine praised their empathy and teamwork, explaining that these qualities would serve them in all areas of life, far beyond the scope of formal ceremonies. Before the day ended, Catherine gathered her children for one final moment of reflection. Today was about more than the ceremony, she said softly. It was about learning, growing, and connecting with each other, with the people, and with history. You've done beautifully, and I'm proud of every one of you. The children hugged her, feeling both pride and love, understanding that the true value of the day lay in family, learning, and shared experiences. Finally, as they prepared for a quiet dinner, Catherine encouraged the children to rest and celebrate the success of the day in their own way. Take a moment to feel proud, she said. Remember what you've learned, enjoy what you experienced, and know that you were brave, kind, and wonderful today. The children nodded, their faces radiant with contentment, reflecting on a day that had been extraordinary in both spectacle and personal growth. The day concluded not with fanfare but with quiet satisfaction. Princess Catherine reflected on the lessons her children had learned, the importance of presence, empathy, respect, gratitude, and teamwork. She knew that today had given them a foundation that would last a lifetime, shaping how they approached both public duties and personal relationships. The Trooping the Color had been more than a ceremony. It had been a living classroom, filled with joy, wonder, and meaningful lessons. As the children drifted off to sleep, still talking softly about the day's events, Catherine felt a deep sense of accomplishment. She had guided them through a significant and historic moment, balancing instruction, encouragement, and affection with skill and care. The memories they had created, the lessons they had learned, and the joy they had shared would remain with them forever, forming a cornerstone of their understanding of duty, tradition, and family. In that quiet evening, the family was united not only by blood but by experience, reflection, and shared growth. Catherine knew that this day would be remembered by her children as a moment of pride, wonder, and connection, a day when they had stepped into history, learned important life lessons, and most importantly, felt the warmth, guidance, and love of their mother every step of the way.